Okay, can I have your attention, please? It's 3 o'clock. Everyone, we'd like to get the meeting started. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brent Ziegler, and I have the honor of being the president of the board this year. I'd also like to introduce the other board members, Janet Saucier, who's vice president, Bob McGinnis, treasurer, Ann Sanders, director, Dick Benson, secretary, and Brian O'Neill, director. So I'd like to thank everyone for being here today, taking time out of your day, both those present here and those that are online. Just a quick reminder to turn your cell phones to silent if you're not there already. You know, I'd also like to thank all of our volunteers. I'd like to thank the Conesty staff for making this place so wonderful and a place we all love to call home. And the board would also like to acknowledge the Strategic Planning Committee, Facilities Planning Committee, and Finance Committee for all that they've done to get the project to this point. So hold your questions to the end. And with that, I'll hand it off to Jim to go through the presentation. And again, thank you.
Thanks, Brent. Whoa. Mine's working really good. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming out. Hopefully, quite a few of you were able to attend the preliminary meetings we had about a month ago. Oh, actually, it's more than a month ago. 2 months ago, where we had 3 different presentations on a proposed plan to potentially build a new activity and wellness center and also to enhance our pool area as well. Unfortunately, we are here today to present just one half of the presentation, which is the activity and wellness center, because we are still working on options for the pool, which will probably take us a few more months, but we will go into that in a little bit more detail here in a short period of time. So we're going to do a brief look back on where we are today. I think I'm going to wait for Robert to get the presentation up there. Oh, I scared you off already? Yeah. Oh, they're pool people. Okay. No, I made that up. I don't know. They're here for the wrong meeting, apparently. They're probably here for the corral for tomorrow. Anyway. So we're going to do a brief look back. We're going to explain how we got to where we are today and why. We'll give you an update on the actual proposal, the financial consideration, the next steps, and obviously a Q&A after the presentation. So since 2016, the CFPO board has charged the Facility Planning Committee, FPC, to study the need for a activity and wellness center, look at different locations and preliminary layout for an A&W center. The pandemic obviously halted some of that work, and the A&W has still been one of the big 5, even though the pandemic had an impact on our timing. It also had an impact on costs because we were sort of given another charge by the board to determine what locations and what other options we may have to look for the most economically feasible way to build this new activity and wellness center. The Facility Planning Committee consists of basically 7 members. I want to call them out today if they're here. The chair is Chip Webb. I know he's here today. Thank you, Chip. Carl Burkhart. I don't think he's here. Jordan Clark, Vince Chula, Marty Hodgkins. I know he's here today. Thank you, Marty. Joseph Laps, Walter Perry, Gene Rowe, and Vince Tidwell. And before, Brent Ziegler, when he was as a director, was the liaison, and now Donna Aiken-Colflesh will be the new board liaison going forward for 2022 and 3. She could not be here today. She had a family issue she's dealing with today. So the FPC research, what did they look at? Well, there was, over the last, since 2016, there's been numerous surveys taken. So we looked at member survey regarding demand for A&W. We looked at, oops, sorry, you got one step ahead of me there. One back, there you go. Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, member survey regarding A&W demand, review of similar competing communities and fitness providers. The other communities we try to stay as close as possible within Western North Carolina, but there, any of you who've purchased here in the last 3 or 4 years probably even knows better. There's not a lot of communities that are similar to Conesty. We're very unique, but we did try to look at as many that we felt were comparable. And we also looked at some, what we'd call in Tennessee as well, which has similar HOAs as Conesty Falls. We did analysis of all the different locations with Conacy Falls, including repurposing other facilities. We did the site planning and then obviously preliminary design work, which we'll show you again here in a few minutes. The facility planning committee, the strategic planning committee, and the board feel investing in a new A&W center basically supports our current priorities, which are to balance owner priorities that are consistent with CFPO strategic plan, the new buyer surveys, and indicating a desire to have up-to-date and optimal amenities with minimal debt. Our second principle is obviously to take care of what we own. And so once we build this activity wellness center, it's approved, we would reconfigure the existing clubhouse fitness center space for more member use for clubs and classes and events. And this would also obviously help relieve stress on the Cherokee room use and other clubhouse scheduling challenges. Today is a good example. We're doing this presentation a little different than we have in the past because obviously you can see the stage set up, which has been here now for almost a week or 8 days for the practice for the corral shows that are going to be, I think, Thursday and Friday and Sunday. Unfortunately, for anyone who hasn't signed up yet, they're all sold out. So everybody's excited to come back and see the corral shows, which they normally used to do 2 or 3 of them a year, but this will be the first one now in 3 years. So it's good that everyone's coming out and supporting that. Another reason why we're here, the facility planning and strategic planning also look for, how do we plan for our future? Currently, we have a little over 1,450 units, give or take. Our best guess is that we'll probably have 1,700 to 1,800 units at some type of build out. So you're looking at potentially another 20 to 25% increase in community population. Now, obviously, that's going to happen over multiple years, but we still need to be planning for that growth. And we also are increasing the number of year-round residents. So right now we have about 65% of our residents that are considered full-time, which is basically more than 6 months. So that continues to rise as well. So we want to make sure we're planning and preparing for more year-round residents. And we want to be as prudent with our fiscal management as possible and have a manageable debt for any projects we go forward with, have strong equity positions in any project we do, and this A&W project will do that as well. And then obviously still allow us ongoing liquidity for maintenance reserves and operating cash as well, and to be prepared for any other options that may come about down the road that we may be able to take advantage of. So as we talked about when I started, we held 3 A&W and pool enhancement projects in May. We've updated this presentation and Q&A with members in June. We had correspondence to the board from many members, around 300, give or take, questions and comments. We talked about this through a board business letter and GM News and Views. And then we had an interim FAQ as well that was sent out to the community a couple of weeks after the presentations. So what we're proposing today, based on the information we have today, is that we go ahead and move forward now on the A&W only. It would consist of the construction of a 2-story, 12,000 square foot building. It would include exercise equipment, floor exercise room with availability of online interactive exercise and learning. And that would be a dedicated learning room. It would have an activity room upstairs, up to 5 meeting rooms. We'd have restrooms, including showers, 2 lobbies, obviously, an outdoor pavilion and mini amphitheater for potential classes to be held outdoors as well. We are looking at the location of across the clubhouse, which is basically directly through those windows, the knoll. Lots of discussion on the knoll over the years. That knoll is not a native spot. It's actually a fill location when they dug the foundation for this clubhouse. So it is not something like an Indian burial ground or anything like that. It's just it was easier for them to move the dirt 50 feet versus thousands of feet. This also allows us to use all the utilizing existing in our new parking area that was built last year. We were also looking at making sure we budgeted money in there for the renovation of the 1,100 square foot current fitness center, and obviously would include furniture, fixtures, and equipment for the A&W and any renovated spaces, and additional and enhanced landscape around the A&W and clubhouse. beginning in 2024, if this A&W is constructed, the cost going up to operate, it would go up approximately $90,000. Some of you came to the other presentations may remember for the pool and A&W, we were guesstimating approximately $150,000 in additional operating costs associated with the project that both of those were completed. Obviously operating expenses include your maintenance, your utilities, insurance, labor, all the things that obviously are all part of operating a facility. So on the pool enhancement portion, we continue to work and find other opportunities of what we may be able to do to enhance our pool. Our current pool was built in 1998. It is beginning to reach its end of its useful life. You know, there's discussion and argument on what that useful life may be, but realistically, anywhere from 3 to 5 years, you're gonna have to spend a considerable amount of money, even if you never did any expansion. If you just renovated the current pool in the size it is, would probably be roughly anywhere from $200,000 to $400,000 most likely. So you are gonna have to spend some money on a pool no matter what you do. But we need, after our first 3 meetings in May, we got a lot of different feedback on the pool and what people would like to see in the pool, and especially how we could try to make it either year-round or a longer lasting season for pool use. So we're looking at all those options. I know Chip's here today. We actually have another meeting set up tomorrow with the pool contractor to try to continue looking at options and trying to finalize some plans there. But it's going to take us some more time to design and price and get renderings for the pool. But like I said before, doing nothing at the pool pretty much is not an option no matter what we do. We're going to spend some considerable money at the pool at some point. But here's what we are still looking at on a potential pool enhancement project. We'd like to have a new resort style pool with a zero entry type of entry into the pool. We'd like to have numerous lap lanes within the big resort pool. We would also like to look at a separate covered lap pool for year-round swimming and water exercise. We'd like to obviously redo the bathhouses, what I call the YMCA bathrooms. Have some type of interactive splash zone for the kids and grandkids, and then obviously larger social areas as well around the pool deck. It's important, we'll get further into this in a minute, but I just want to make sure everyone understands that even though we're separating these projects now because of timing, financial impact has not changed. There is still plenty of funds for both projects. And we'll go a little bit into that in a couple of minutes. So what we're proposing now is to build the A&W only. Right now, the estimate is $3.9 million. That number is coming from, basically we have 3 contractors that have sort of been looking at the schematics that we've been doing. We have basically 40% completion of our architectural renderings done. So they can get pretty darn close on estimates based on that. And again, like I said, we have 3 contractors that we've been in discussion with, and they keep updating their pricing and giving us updates pretty much on every couple of weeks or 30-day window. The good news right now is some of those costs are beginning to drop. So both aluminum and wood are both coming down. Copper is coming down. So timing wise, we might be going into a good timing wise to take advantage of some of those price drops that are happening in raw materials. In our original proposal, again, if everyone was here or remembers or listened to the presentation, we were looking, when we were going to do both projects, of potentially borrowing up to $2.5 million for the 2 projects. Now that we're just looking at the A&W for now, we're looking at potentially borrowing up to $1.75 million, which puts us about a 60% equity level in the project. All these funds would come out of the amenity fund. Obviously, there's more than there is more than sufficient amount of our equity already in the amenity reserve fund for the A&W, but we feel it's appropriate to take a loan out for up to 7 years as well, to have future buyers, the people that buy thereafter this is approved, who are paying the amenity fee as well for their amenity fee to go into offsetting the costs as well. So it's not just the current people that are going to be paying for the project, it'd be the current people and the future people as well. So they would have some equity in the project as well. Right now, we're still using the original estimate when we're looking at the pool from the proposal we did in May of $2.1 million. We think that that price or that estimate's probably going to come down based on our new ideas we have for the pool and concepts. So that hopefully that will come down a little bit, but we're using that number because it's the only number we have right now. And if and when that project gets approved, we borrow up to $750,000 for the pool portion of the project. So as you can see, those two numbers still equal the 2.5 million that we originally were discussing in May. Obviously, if either one of these, either one or two or both don't get approved, that's still, you know, an option, obviously, but it would obviously diminish your member value within the community as the amenities continue to depreciate. And as I said, you're still going to have probably $200,000 to $300,000 in costs on the pool, even if you just can keep the pool you have and renovate it. So this is a little tough to see, but I just want to make sure everyone understands how the cash flow works through this potential project. The red area or pink, it looks pink to you, but it's red on my sheet, but is the area where we really want to concentrate. So you'll see there, if this project A&W got approved, that first line, their A&W center cost that says 3.8. I'm using 3.9 right now. But if you look at the 1.2 and 2.7, that's 3.9. That's just a mistake. So we potentially would spend $1.2 million this year. Again, that's all timing related. Depending if this gets approved, we were hoping we could start sometime fourth quarter. We'd obviously incur the rest of the cost, 2.7 in 2023 as the building's getting constructed. If and when we did the pool, you'll see that number down there, 500 and 1.6 starting in 2023, 2024. And then you'll see that line item A&W Center loan repayment is equivalent to the whole 2.5 being paid out over that 7-year period, which is, you know, I'm not going to worry about the two small ones there. That would be as you take the money down. But once the construction loan became permanent, you were roughly $435,000 a year in P&I for those 7-year period. The important thing to see here is we've also put in sufficient funds in what we call the RP fund, which was approved by the membership and board a few months ago, which is also going in to help offset potential costs on current buildings that we have, because we don't have any funds for that currently. And then we took out other money in what we call FMP, which is a facility master plan. Pretty much every year, we always come up with small projects of some sort that will help us continue to improve the community. And you'll see what they call placeholders for that. So at the end of the day, the bottom line, you'll see that in 2024, which is the conclusion of the major portion of the funds going out, the amenity fund still never goes below $2.7 million. And then you'll see going forward, it continues to rise pretty significantly because we figure once the A&W and the pool is complete, you know, we're pretty much done with major projects until potentially we have to do something here at the clubhouse. And we are basing these numbers of the amenity funds coming in on what we would consider a relatively low number of 80 to 100 units of reselling a year, okay, which historically has been where we are over a 20-year period. So you'll see in 2026 we had 1.2 coming in, 1.3, 1.4, and that's pretty much where we've been every year in the last few years. Even in a sort of crazy market like now where there's been very low inventory, we've actually met our goal budgeted numbers this year, which was 80. We're probably going to easily hit that the way things are going, even though the inventory has been really low. And the reason that is you get, even if only 6 or 8 units go on the market in a given month, those 6 or 8 units are selling within the same month or the next month thereafter. So, so we feel very confident that from a cash flow position, we can pay this easily out of the amenity fund, no special assessments to the members. It's just going to be coming in and out of the amenity fund as the project continues. So let's just go through the visual reminder of what we're proposing. 2-story building, obviously, like we said, across the street from us here. The first floor being the fitness center itself, which is on the right, which is approximately 2,100 square feet. To put that in perspective, the current fitness center is a little under 1,100 square feet. So almost, oh, he's going to try to zoom in. There you go. Oh, nice color, better. So our current fitness center is about 1,100 square feet, so almost double that. If you go to the left on this slide, that would be the lobby. The bathrooms here are the ones that would have the showers because they're on the first floor where most likely people who are going to use the showers would use them. And then the area where you see the spin bikes and so forth is the exercise classroom. Again, approximately 2,200 square feet there. So that would be a dedicated space just for classroom use. On the next slide, this is sort of an overview aerial of that same space. And then we will do a quick video of a 3D video walkthrough. So that we are proposing here that any of the equipment that we currently have would be resold, and we'd get some type of credit based on that, and everything else would be, all the equipment would be new state-of-the-art equipment. We would not reuse any of the current equipment we have. So we get to the upper levels here, the same basic reverse motor image of the first floor. Directly above the exercise classroom, and what we call the activity room, which is basically a multi-purpose room. We have a lobby, a couple restrooms in. We have four meters should be able to drive in and take it to a store, to smaller rooms. So we have about 5 rooms on the second floor. And again, activity built rooms is another 21 square feet. So about meters, basically the same footprint as a fitness center below. And we have a picture of what we basically potentially to take us from what we look like on the next slide.
Well, they're experiencing audio issues on the screen.
Okay. I'm talking too fast.
All right.
Thank you, sir. So activity is set up so that we have movable for arts or crafts. You could set it up for just a big meeting room, whatever the needs may call for this area. And it doesn't show on the slide, but on this room and then also downstairs in the exercise room, there is very large storage areas in both rooms to be able to accommodate storing all this furniture in there if you need to, or down below like spin bikes and exercise equipment you're not using can also go into the storage. So that gives us a lot of flexibility on how we can use these rooms. So from a location standpoint, like we said, it's directly across from us. Believe it or not, this is a 12,000 square foot. Oop, can you go backwards again real quick? That's okay. This is a 12,000 square foot building, and you can see even a structure that size, or 6,000 square feet of the first floor footprint, you can see how much space is still available for us to do nice landscape and not just have the building look like part of the parking lot. So it's a really big area. It's hard to see that from when you walk by it the way it is today, but it is huge. It's a huge piece of land. We would then also move handicap parking to the front of this building so that it'd be more accessible for the handicap parking for the clubhouse and or this building as well. And you can see the little sitting area over there and the other sitting area on the other side. So quite a bit of space that we can use here. This would be the front elevation, which is what I'm calling this side from the clubhouse side, would be your main entry point. This is the little amphitheater we're talking about where people could sit and wait or rest if they're waiting for a class to end before they go in. And also this breaks the building apart a little bit so that it's just not, you know, we can push up some of the dirt up against it so that it gives it some depth as opposed to just having a building sitting on a flat piece of land. This would be the other side coming in from the parking lot side. You'd have some steps to get in that door and have a handicap accessibility around the corner on both sides. But this would be what the elevation would look like from the parking lot side. Again, this is a side view, which would be the clubhouse side over here. Basically that area that you have the current cut through from the parking lot to the clubhouse. This would be the new cut through where we'd have some type of water feature to have a little social gathering spot there as well. So hopefully to most of you, this isn't anything new that you hadn't seen either in May or through the website or any of the online presentations. So what are our next steps? So right now we're looking to have the board meet on our normal meeting time, which is next Wednesday, to have a Zoom meeting for them to have a special meeting to vote on whether they want to move this project forward to the membership for a vote. Assuming that they do that, which I would think they would since they're bringing it forward today, but you never know. Assuming they do that on August 29th, which is the following Monday, next Monday, we would send out the vote to the membership. Just like we did with the budget this year, we would do that electronically with the help of the elections committee. And we would also then send out anyone who did not have an email address, voting member that did not have an email address, would be mailed a ballot for them to return. And they would have up to 30 days to do that, which would bring us to September 29th, which is a Thursday. Once all those are accumulated, the election committee would meet the following day on the 30th, count and certify all those votes. And then we could potentially send out the results to the community later that afternoon, hopefully. Hopefully they can get it done in a couple hours. That's the whole idea of doing it by electronic. So what happens if that comes back and the vote is positive? If it came back positive, this is how we would move forward. The next step would be to continue the detailed construction drawings, which are roughly 60 days out, give or take. But during that time, we could start negotiating and determining who we would like to work with on this project with the contractor. So we bring the three, well, right now it's 3 people we're talking to, but so let's assume all those are still interested. We'd bring all 3 of those contractors in, start talking about potential bids on the contract. We would award a contractor the project based on those bids and their ability to do the work. The lowest bid is not always the best bid, depending on how their book looks going forward, whether they can dedicate enough time to you as a client to make sure it happens the way it's supposed to. And if that happened, we would potentially could start construction. When I say start construction, really you're talking about getting the infrastructure, underground infrastructure in first. So potentially you could start seeing our crew, which would be our crew doing that, most of that work, taking the hill down here, the knoll down, getting it to the grade that the elevation that the engineers describe, and start doing the underground infrastructure, you know, water, utilities, electrical, all that, and hopefully start vertical construction first quarter of 2023. During this time, we would obviously continue to work on the pool enhancement portion of the project. Again, like I mentioned earlier, we are meeting with the pool contractor again tomorrow. I think we're at a point that we just are tweaking a few more things, and hopefully within the next 60 days or so, we'll have something to present. So we were looking at end of this quarter or potentially early to 2023 to present the pool project. And also understanding that the two are not interrelated, both can happen. If the A&W doesn't get approved, we'd still bring the pool enhancement project or vice versa. There are two projects now. But either way, if both of them are approved or presented and approved, it would not impact the financial capability for us to do both of these projects simultaneously. In a perfect world, the timing that we presented in May would not change. We would be able to start the A&W, hopefully have that 80–90% complete by the third quarter of 2023. Start the pool, what I'd call the end of the season in 2023, October, November, and hopefully have the pool done by May for the new season to be open and ready for 2024. So none of that changes. So that basically is our presentation. It's a little shorter, obviously, the ones in May, because we haven't really changed much as opposed to what the A&W was proposed to be back in May. So at this point, we would take questions. We'd ask you to go to the microphone, give your name, and we don't need your lot number, but just your name and then your question, and we will go from there.
Robert, there we go. I'm Larry Rourke. I live over on Ayugative Court. I want to preface my statements by saying I fully support that we need to get a A&W center, and I fully support that we need to get this pool replaced and get something that's state of the art in there. What myself and a lot of other people are concerned about is removing that berm here and putting another building in front of the clubhouse, where you're going to be looking out the windows into a parking lot on one side, and you're going to be looking at this building. That doesn't seem to me to fit within the overall ethereal perspective that we want to present for Conisty Falls, the nature, the outdoors. And most of us, when we were doing the work in 2016 on the other proposal that we had, the berm was probably one of the bigger issues that we dealt with a lot of people when we were doing some of those early presentations. The benefit, if we went back to what we were going to do before in 2016, which I still think is viable, we could still deal with all the same space and all the measurements, everything that Jim talked about. What we were talking about doing is going in an angle from the existing health center out at about 30 to 45 degrees that way, which would mean that you've got a view of the partial view of the mountains. You get a view of the 9th, or I should say the 10th fairway, the tee box, putting green. So a lot of the views you got here would be available down there. 3 stories, and that obviously is a difference, but that first story is going to be even with the pool complex, and it's going to allow for an expansion area space-wise for the pool that we need to have for the future. And in that first floor is going to be day lockers, showers, changing rooms, all that we're going to be talking about when we put a new pool in, and taking the old structure that we had for the showers and everything out of there. That would all be down there. And one of the things we never got around to addressing was, is it possible that we can take all the filtration and water equipment that we had sitting over in this old building that which is right next to the right-hand side as you're facing the pool, take that out and put that in the first floor of that new A&W center. And then you've got everything consolidated. That means pickleball people can use that, everyone. The second floor, which was the middle floor, that was going to be something like activity rooms, fitness center, and so on. And the top floor was going to be more activity rooms. And what was nice about it is you could look out and you have all this nature that you're viewing out there with all the windows that would be available, a causeway that would come from the top that would be covered coming over the entrance into the clubhouse. All of the beauty that we've tried to go ahead and maintain that we've got in this community, and we promote it all the time. Think of the marketing venue that we would have if we had that done right, sitting in amongst the nature. The thing that I haven't talked about is The side that goes out away from where the mountain views are is you're going to be able to look down in the pool area. You're going to be able to look down at the pickleball area. And we were talking about, we never got to finalizing putting 2 screened in porches at the end of each, the top floor and the middle floor, so that you'd have a lounging area after you got through with your exercise and you got through with fitness. Low cost to put that in. And again, you could be sitting out there looking at nature and looking at all the stuff that's going on that's available to you. A lot of us would like to see that happen and not take away this berm, even though we know it's not natural. It still is there. And coming off the golf course today on the 10th, I should say, 9th fairway, looking up with all those trees gone, and we're looking at another building here. It just doesn't fit within the scheme of things for Coniston. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. So I'm going to try to remember, but if I remember the original 3-story design, if I remember right, we had the area that you're talking about. The first floor was the pool room, changing room, locker rooms. We had a room we had, like you said, had not been dedicated for anything yet, but it was a pretty big space, which we are looking at currently in the pool enhancement project of trying to get all the equipment when we redo the current building to try to get all the equipment inside as well, because that totally makes sense. But I remember the second floor being either way, I can't remember exactly. The second room being the classroom and the third floor being the equipment, or vice versa. But I don't remember the meeting rooms. I thought we only had those 2 rooms, not the separate rooms. But I also remember that when we were looking at it, that the cost then, which was whatever now, 3 years ago, was close to 4 million, a little over 4 million for less square footage than we're proposing here. So when the board charged the facility planning committee to continue looking at A&W, they said, let's try to find the most cost efficient way to build the building. And there's no doubt that this space logic over here is an easier build. There's no doubt about that. From the aesthetic perspective, yeah, you can make different arguments about that. My personal opinion on this location is that, and I got to say this the right way, but I think it's somewhat of a good thing that you don't see that the new building will be what you see right away versus this building.
I understand. The major point that
The view perspective, I totally understand what you're saying.
yeah, and one of the key things that when we did this proposal back in 2016 is we wanted to create more space for putting in a larger pool.
Right.
So all that old storage area that we had and where we got our filtration equipment, all that can disappear.
Right.
And that goes on the first floor.
Right.
From a financial standpoint, a lot of us feel if we were given a choice, and I've written to the board on this a couple times, and I haven't gotten what I consider real response to my questions, is it would be nice for the residents of this community to take a look at what both of those proposals are and decide which one. If we need to increase the space in that one to equilibrate to what we were talking about here, Jim, I think that's a great idea. But I still think that the residents ought to have, that we've got an opportunity. We did a lot of work on both of those to take a look at both of those and decide what we want. I don't think anyone's going to argue that we need this stuff. Right. That's my real point.
Okay. There's the gentleman that was waiting. Did he leave? Oh, really? Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. My name is Greg Gruber. My wife and I have lived here for about 2 years as permanent residents of Coniston. I've got 2 questions, and unfortunately, the first one deals with one of your slides.
Okay.
Can you get it back up?
Let me know
It's the financial slide that goes out.
okay.
time.
Yep. Give us a second, but we can get it. We have the technical.
Okay, good. That's more than I can do at home.
The reason Robert does it this way is because when people start talking, we like to show them on the screen so the audience can see the people as opposed to just seeing the slide.
In my case, I'd rather see the slide.
Me too. I keep seeing this shiny spot on the back of my head and it's driving me nuts. Next one, I think is, you're talking about the next one, right?
You there.
There you go. Okay.
The second line,
Uh-huh.
you've got those increases going from $720,000 up till the end of $1.6 million.
Uh-huh.
I'm asking two things. That's either got to be you're increasing the fees.
Correct.
12,500,
Yep.
or you're really increasing the amount of home turnover, whether it's new homes or old homes. And I was wondering if you could share those numbers so
Yeah.
that we could support the
Yep.
1,000,006 from the 720.
Yep. So right now, the buy-in is $10,500 or 12,500, depending if you pay it up front or you wait.
Right.
So in 2023, we're adding another $500, and then I think this is showing that we're going to continue to do that over time, and it may go up more than that. I don't know, but we are putting I think a $500, is that right, Jim? A $500 a year increase in the amenity fund going forward. So, but I don't think we adjusted too much of adding that many more. We still use like an 80 number as your average sale, which is a historical 20-year average.
Well, it seems like if you only add $500 a year, that's hard to double the price in 9 years.
Right.
The fees. So it seems like you're doing the other where you're
So we're
increasing.
doing both, a little of both.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is
So
it reasonable to have somebody done a study to make sure?
yeah, again, like I said, we've looked at our 20-year averages of resales. And I mean, I don't know what else historically you can use besides that. Now in a normal, and I don't know when's the last time I've been in a normal real estate market, but a normal real estate market is anywhere from 5 to 10% turnover of any community similar to this, whether it's here or Florida or anywhere else. So if you have 1,400 units, you should be averaging somewhere between 75 and 100 every year. And again, that 5 to 10%, I think that's like a 40-year average of the National Board of Realtors average.
Okay, I just hope that somebody addresses those numbers at the end of that, because it looks pretty high.
Yeah. Now realize going out is great, right? Because it looks like it's bringing a lot more money in. But if you really look at those first 3 or 4 years out where you've have all the cash flow out, you still never go below 2.75.
Yeah, the cash flow looked pretty good to pay off the debt.
Right.
You could take the 1,000,007 and divide that by 12.5 and you get 140
Right.
or 140 turnover.
Yeah. And if you base it on those numbers as well, you would see that well before the 7 years, if we decided to, we could pay it off and still have more than $2.5 million still in the amenity fund and pay the loan off in 3 years instead of 7. So this is why we like this proposal, because it gives us so much flexibility from a cash flow perspective.
Okay, now my second question, and it doesn't really deal with any of the slides, is that this is what, the 4th meeting?
Yes.
And I know
Yes.
that a lot of people here, including my wife and I, have submitted questions to y'all.
Right.
You've answered them and everything, but it seems like this presentation is exactly the same as the first presentation on the A&W side.
Correct.
Forget the pool.
Right. That's correct.
So what have we and you guys done since the first meeting? It seems like to me, it's all for naught. All that has happened is that people have supplied their questions. They might have been answered, they might not have been, but basically nobody listened to them, because this presentation is the exact same one as the first one.
Yep.
And
So let me ask the question. So
anybody's time.
if we get 2 or 3 comments or questions about what they'd like to see tweaked, would that make sense that we would change the plan based on 2 or 3 comments? So we never got what I would consider 200 responses of the same thing of that they'd like to see changed, right? So to me, and I saw all the questions come, I didn't see anything that would make me want to physically change the plan or redesign the plan based on that input. I mean, there was questions and opinions, but there wasn't an overwhelming, except for maybe Larry's, in a sense of we'd like to see it in a different location, but the building itself, there wasn't a lot of tweaking that we needed to do based on that input.
There was some input on whether or not you should go out and incur more debt. And
Yes.
I think that was by a lot of people.
When you say a lot, that was probably 20. So, I mean,
Obviously,
right.
I'm here and you're there. I don't know.
right. And I know what I'm saying, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I'm saying there was probably 15 maybe or 20 that directly question the debt portion of the project.
You know, I agree with the gentleman here that we do need a fitness or an A&W center,
Right.
but with what has been sent back to the members, I don't know if you're going to get enough votes and you're going to be in the same boat that you are, to do nothing. So.
Yeah, that's a possibility, I guess. Yeah, that's always a chance when you vote.
Thank you.
The one thing I would also say on that is, the board's asking for the ability to borrow up to 1.75 or 2.5 if you do both projects. If all of a sudden you had 200 homes sell next year or the year after, and you were even more flush in the amenity fund, it does not prevent us from paying it off ahead of time either. But we feel as a management and a board is that right now, all the money that's sitting in the amenity fund is yours, depending whether you moved in here 20 years ago or 5 years ago or 2 days ago, you've all ponied up something into that amenity fund. So to rape that whole thing down right now and say, because we could pay for the whole thing cash today if we wanted to, but why would you want to do that when you have, whether it's 40 units, 50 units, 80 units, or 100 units, you're going to have some inflow of cash coming in for the next 7 years. And even at the higher interest rates we are today, and right now we're looking at like 4.75 to 5, but under 5. Why wouldn't you want to leverage that and put some equity in it, but leverage that cash flow position and have some people that are coming in after you paying for it? I mean, to me, that makes some sense. I mean, if I have a 20-year mortgage and I live there for 10 years, the next person is going to pay their portion. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah.
To respond to that, it all depends on your risk, because when you get the debt, you're depending on this
Correct.
on how much money you're going to be getting.
Right.
So there is a risk that's
Sure there is.
inherent in there
Yep.
that needs to be addressed, because that's a risk that everybody's going to face if you don't make that budget, because you won't be able to pay back your debt.
Well, okay, let's just,
Unless you use, and you go back to, the deal where, okay, you're going to use your old money where all the older residents are going to be paying for.
right. So the debt portion, that was $440,000 a year, right?
Yeah. And
Okay, so how many units
that's 140
no, so at
houses a year.
right, at 400 and something thousand, and let's just use easy numbers for now, 10,000, how many units is that? 40, right?
I counted 140, but anyway.
No, but I'm saying the principal and debt portion of that loan is 430,000 a year for 7 years, give or take. Right?
I just took the 1,075,000 and divided by.
Okay. Well, I'm taking a 430,000 and saying that's our P&I for the next 7 years. So if I have to somehow pay that P&I every year, right? And let's just use 10,000 as a number for the amenity fund that we collect from every house. I got to sell 43 homes to pay that.
It depends on if you're paying interest first or principal first.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm using a P&I number, which is 430. So if I'd have to sell, we'd have to resell less than 40 units before we'd be at risk, is all I'm saying. So, and I think that's a very feasible, very reachable number, even in I don't know, Linda, some of the realtor, you're Jan's here. I think even in 2008 and 9 years, which was our worst year, I don't think we ever were below 40 or 45, ever. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Robert Vanderlyn. A question, was a separate location considered? I've kind of had some of the same feelings that this gentleman did. I thought
Yes.
we were going to hear some more about possible other locations. Was any other separate location other than removing the hill considered? And like he said, was there anything that we can look at in terms of cost of one versus cost of another?
Yeah, so the current FPC looked at the current location here, proposed. They looked at the original plan from 4 years ago. And from a cost benefit analysis, feel that this is a location you're getting more square footage for less money. Now, obviously Larry's got a point from an aesthetic and different perspective, which everyone has, but I can tell you that proposal 4 years ago had about a $4 million price tag on it then, which is probably 5 now. So
Aesthetic, I'm asking a simple question. Before it was, we're going to look at other locations, and I'm saying since that previous meeting, was any other location other than removing the hill looked at And did that generate any sort of a plan or a cost comparison that homeowners can look at before we just ramrod through, we take down the
Okay.
hill?
So the process that we've went through for years here, and even when Larry was the chair of the FPC, was the committees make their recommendations to the board, right? So this is a recommendation from the current FPC based on all the not just location, but all the financial impacts and all the, so that's where we are today.
You're not
Um,
answering. I don't feel like you're answering.
No, we did look at those we did look at that location again and determine that from a square footage and cost perspective, this one was a more feasible option.
So is there anything that the homeowners and residents can look at, even if we have to make some adjustments as to what the cost was then versus now, so that I can compare what is the cost? And actually, I think we probably ought to do a facility, but I share the same concerns. I don't feel like we're being given a very open response of proposal number one. This is the location. This is what we think it will cost. Proposal number two, there was something proposed back in 2016, 2017. It would do this. And at that time, the cost was Y. Okay.
Mhm.
Or if there's an option three, but I just keep hearing this, well, we considered all this stuff. Was there
Okay.
any other location considered and a cost run?
Yes, that location that he's talking about was considered, and we determined that the cost was not conducive to that location. We can go back more than 3 years or 4 years. There was a proposal 7 or 8 years ago, Larry may remember, that we were going to have an extension off of this building that was going to have a bridge basically carrying us to our other lot we own over here. And we're going to move the pro shop and cart barn and the fitness center over there. Do we want to bring that one up into the fray as well? Because that option exists. Yes.
And I just remember 2016 is the wrong year for the previous proposal.
Yes.
It was
18.
just at the start of the pandemic,
so-
which was what, 2.5 years ago?
Right.
So,
2019, 2020. Yeah.
so, but to answer this gentleman's question. So, Jim, I think to answer this question, it would be helpful to share with them. Do you remember the slide that we had that it was basically a simple logic slide that looked at every lot
Yeah.
and every location that we physically could go ahead and put something in and throughout the whole community?
Correct.
Some of it owned by us, some of it not even owned by us, that were private ownership. So we looked at all that and we put together a logic chart and we did pros and cons of each one of these. And that's all available if we need to.
Mhm.
And that might be something we want to do, Chip. I don't know.
I don't know if you wanted to talk or whether you want to.
My name's Chip Webb. I'm current chair of the FPC. To answer your question, yes. To answer your question, yes. When we got back in this project after the pandemic, we looked at several sites. Now, keep in mind, we don't have a whole lot of level ground here in Conisty. One of the sites we looked at was next to the tennis courts. And we had a plan. We laid it out. Of course, that's not the best foundation in the world. We realized that if we put a site or a building there, it would involve some deep foundation. So we figured out we could get by with that. At the time, the board, in discussions with the board, they wanted it closer to the clubhouse. So we abandoned that and moved up closer, had one of the back parking lots, had a building in one of the back parking lots back here. That didn't work out very well either. It caused some logistics problem. The berm out here was the next logical place. So that's how we got to where we are right now. We did look at several sites, and so it's and it was very similar building design. We looked at a Butler building, which is regular metal building, you know, steel frame. And steel skin. We got some pushback from some of the residents that we talked to that they wanted a building that was more in tune with the current architecture that we have. So we got away from the total Butler building and And yeah, our new building is gonna have wood siding, stone and siding. So we're gonna try to come to the same architecture that we currently have. So this is where we are right now.
And realize too, if we go back even further, there was how far do we want to go? So whatever year, 2000, when was the clubhouse proposal? 15? So in 2014, there was a proposal that this whole building was going to get leveled and we would have a 35 square foot building and have all this stuff in one building. That would have been the ideal plan, right? But that's not what happened. The community voted that down. And now we're trying to make the best we can with what we have. The question always is, how far do you want to go back? That's all. Okay. Yep. Yeah. So, but the answer is we did look at those locations. We've determined that they were not the best locations that are most economically feasible locations.
Okay.
That's all.
So, related question, how are we supposed to make a decision on the A and W when we don't know exactly what you're going to be doing in the pool area? Is what you're going to be doing in the pool area something that could be a combined version? Therefore, you don't have to do two separate things?
So it was decided by the board, the strategic planning committee and finance committee, that we're at a point that we were getting a lot of feedback that we should move forward with the A&W building because we don't know whether we're going to have an answer for the pool in 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days. We don't want to keep delaying the activity and wellness because that's what has been driving this bus for 5 years. A pool has always been an ancillary thing that we knew we were going to have to do, but was never part of the original A&W proposal going back even 5 years ago. So.
My name is Norm Coleman. I'm the third guy that brought up, I don't like this location here.
Mhm.
That's too valuable. I don't care about the berm. I'm just saying in front of the clubhouse, that's where, if we're going to expand this clubhouse, that's a place we can go. The looks from the street, I just think this is the wrong place. You don't have good figures on the original proposal over here, but sounds like you were going to be able to utilize the shower area for both facilities. The pool
Mhm.
and the activity and wellness could share the same showers. That's a little bit of cost saving. Would touch that. I just urge
Yeah.
my fellow Conestians to let this board know that you really should rethink if this is the right location, even regardless of the cost. It's too valuable a piece of property.
My facts, I think, are when they were looking at the clubhouse redo, they weren't talking about moving that direction at all. They were going this way, and that way, if I remember correctly. So that this berm was never part of any expansion. Not saying it couldn't be, but that plan anyway.
Hi, Jan Newsom. An easier question. On the financing end, your proposal is for 7 years for our loan.
Yep.
Now, if for some reason the way the timing works or doesn't work and the pool doesn't come into play till a bit of time afterwards, would we be lengthening that 7 years once we put that in there?
If anything, you'd probably be shortening it because
Okay.
you wouldn't need as much money going forward for the pool.
Now, it has also been said at the last meeting, wasn't brought up at this meeting, but for 2 years, we were going to use a portion of the amenity fees to pay for the ongoing costs of the
Correct.
2 centers.
Yes, that's still.
So if there was a time frame when the housing market wasn't good,
Right.
would we be extending the time frame when we're using the amenity fees? And doesn't that affect what we have in the amenity fund and what we can do going forward?
Right. So the answer to that is sort of a yes and a yes, I think, if I understand. But yes, if there is some type of economic tsunami or disaster or whatever that put a lot of people under stress, yeah, we could extend that useful, that subsidy out of the amenity fund for those operational costs. for another year or two. But again, if you add the 430, if you did both projects and 150, which is what we're looking at for subsidy, you'd still be at, less than 60 units that would have to resell in a given year to cover that cost. But it does increase your risk a little bit more, sure. Yep.
Because it's always been an object of the finance committee to keep us not needing to use the
Right.
amenity fees for operations.
Correct.
Have they approved doing that for 2 years? The finance committee?
We talked about it for 2023 and 2024. So one would be a partial year and one would be a full year. Yeah.
Okay, but it would be in the.
It would be part of the budget.
Minutes of the meetings
Yep.
that the finance committee is aware and.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
And I think the finance chair is here. Bob Coffin, is he here somewhere? Yep. Yeah. So that would be in the minutes. I think we approved that. They approved that at the last meeting because we wanted to make sure that we basically went to finance committee, strategic planning and facility planning and asked them all for the quote unquote, the blessing to make this proposal the way we're doing it today. So it's part of all three of their minutes.
Good afternoon. My name's Bill Spencer. We've been a property owner since '09 and 60 Unoli. Somewhat echoing Mr. Rourke's comments and Mr. Coleman's, it seems to me that first impressions and how you drive in from the street are extremely important and consistent with Honesty's overall ambiance of a forested community. To me, and this is an opinion, if I was in front of a government, I would be talking about site planning and architectural amenities, but to eliminate the berm and the trees, it looks to me that you're putting in an apple and orange with a club facility entryway and a fitness center entryway literally across from each other. But from a planning standpoint, it seems that if the pool and those amenities, which seem to be expanding appropriately, are, let's say, 2 months away, 3 months away, if we were doing an overall site plan for a planned community or club facility, et cetera, I don't know, but would have to assume that a lot of the infrastructure for the pool and its development, whether it be garbage, refuge, sewer, drainage, you name it, is going to somehow be shared if you were to put the fitness center where it was originally discussed a couple of years ago. And getting back to the view corridor, which is obviously in planning, an extremely important concept. What your view corridor is, as you're exercising across the street, is a parking lot and the rooftop of this building. Whereas if you put it, and I would think in a symbiotic relationship with your pool and other amenities, pickleball, et cetera, you'd be looking out over the golf course, the mountain view, which is as pretty a view as anywhere in the country. And I would think that would make a big difference. We're talking about a generational, multi-generational improvement, whether it be 2.5 million or 4 million over 20 years. I hate to downplay $1.5 million, but I think the overall economic benefit and use of the fitness center in combination with a pool would fit better in closer proximity with a better view corridor. And I do think that some of your cost savings, whether it be in your bathrooms or whether it be in your air conditioning, your all of the above. You could even move your garbage refuge, which is in front of the door here, to a more convenient, less conspicuous location. And getting back to Mr. Coleman's comment, we're talking 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road. Some of us won't be here, but that is a valuable piece of property for your next generations to come across the street. I don't believe that from a first impression view experience of Conisty, to put it there, the fitness center versus over with a pool, is the better of choices without at least exploring the cost relationship of what it's going to do with the pool and the equipment and the storage and the delivery, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, from an operational standpoint. So that's, and some of that's opinion, but some of it, I think, gets into your actual engineering and cost engineering that I think should be considered as part of your pool development before you say yay or nay, or at least vote. I think you ought to know what the cost consideration.
So if we're going to be honest in the room, and I know not everyone's been here for as long as you have, but what we're dealing with
Just
right,
looked at them.
but what we're dealing with right now, to some extent, is a reactive approach to the scenario when the clubhouse proposal failed, right? That's what's leading us to some extent where we are, because we're trying to make improvements for the next generation, realizing that most likely nothing's going to happen here to the clubhouse in the next
Sort
10.
of like making two mistakes instead of.
Yeah, I don't always disagree with that, but we are where we are, right? So, but I would, the opinion, which I understand your position from an aesthetic perspective, but my opinion and some others would be that I would much rather see a brand new state-of-the-art looking building. The first thing you see when you turn left or turn right into the clubhouse, and seeing, like you said, your waste area in front of the clubhouse. So
Well, and
that's an opinion,
I don't
but
want to go off on just the relationship of the two buildings from a perspective standpoint. I'm really talking about cost engineering, and are you going to be replicating and duplicating costs, whether it be your garbage storage, et cetera, et cetera. If you're only a couple months away on that, I would respectfully suggest you might want to consider it. Those are,
right.
I think if you were doing it for a developer, which you are, you would look at the overall cost relationship of the two and not just say, okay, well, we just got to do this and let's get it done.
Right.
To me, that's making two mistakes over one.
Yeah, from the water and electrical and utilities, like you're talking about, I don't think there would be a savings one way or that, because that was still a standalone building that you'd have to plumb and do all the, just like you would over here, because you can't tie into what's already here. We're struggling to keep, our electrical panel here is barely handling what we have currently in this building. So, but no, I understand where you're coming from a site planning perspective. And just so everyone understands how garbage works here, because we can't have dumpsters because of the bears. So we have 52 garbage cans throughout the community that we go to every single day, empty into a dump truck and drive to Rosman to dump it. We do that 7 days a week. So it is, it is a dilemma. And unfortunately, the biggest one is, like you say, right here in front of the clubhouse. They can't hear you. Right. Yeah. Surface water. Yep. 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 Okay. We got it. Okay. Next. Craig, how are you doing?
Good. Craig Wilson. Couple of comments. I think this location is the most practical, expeditious solution to the A&W Center. And I understand all the advantages, of the other site. But at this point, if you move ahead with this, it may happen within the next year or so. If you want to restudy everything, then you have to hire an architect to develop the alternate plans to the stage that these are in. That costs a bunch of money. It takes a bunch of time. Then you got to reconsider everything. So you're basically adding a year or better to the schedule to go back and reconsider all the other alternatives. So I think that's the most cost-effective alternative. It's the most time-effective alternative. Would it have been nice to have redone the whole thing in 2014 when we first bought a place here and everybody was lobbying us to vote for or against the new clubhouse? But we are where we are, and I think that's the best alternative. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Gentlemen, yes, sir.
Sterling Post. My wife and I, we've been an owner here for 16 years, full-time here 5 years. My question is, once the wellness center is built, is there going to be, currently we pay a fee for our fitness center, for the wellness center. Once it's all built, is it going to be part of our amenities for everybody to come to the fitness center?
Yep. So that was a proposal that we presented in May, that we would have a small administrative fee, $50, $75 a year, just to fill out your liability release forms. And the equipment room would be open to all members. And the only other additional cost would be the classroom, either what I call the class membership, yoga, Pilates, all that, or you can pay as you go for those either way, because those are all independent contractors currently.
Next question, is, I know Airbnb are here to
Mhm.
stay.
Yep.
Fact, which is, now they pay a fee when they rent,
Correct.
they pay a fee to be a part of our amenities.
Correct.
That's correct. So I was wondering, perhaps could the board create a committee to kind of re-look at the Airbnb? I don't know what they pay.
$150 each time a transaction occurs. So if they rent it
to
for
Coniston,
two Coniston,
to
correct.
Coniston.
It roughs out to about 130,000 a year in fees.
Okay, so we're building I love my community. We're building a great community. We're gonna have a great facility.
Right.
It's our community, but we're also building a great resort for the homeowners who
Right.
rent their place out, make a lot of money.
Yep.
So maybe we can reassess how much they need to put some more skin into
Correct.
for this.
So just as and I don't disagree with where, so when I got here, whatever it was, 4 years ago, the actual transfer fee, like a better word, was $50 a unit each time they change. We're up to 150 now. We continue to look at, increasing that because you get to a point, hopefully from a diminishing return perspective, if all of a sudden that number is 200, 250, the 2 day and 3 days are probably going to start shrinking, right? Because if that person, you as the owner are going to pass that cost along to the person who's renting your unit, and those numbers don't make as much sense. And I think that's where most people struggle is not, not the monthlies or the 6 months or a year. It's these ones that come in for 2 days. And unfortunately, the way our documents are written, and we've had 2 attorneys now look at this, our previous attorney and our new attorney who came to us highly recommended from an attorney that was on our board. They're the biggest HOA attorneys in the state, in South Carolina and North Carolina. And we might be able to do something where we could grandfather or something, but you can't change what you bought into, right? So there's a financial impact of where we can maybe help discourage it from a financial perspective. And then there's another opportunity to potentially change documents going forward that would grandfather current people in, but then impact the buyer, the new buyers going forward. So that continues to always be looked at. Yeah. Yep.
Hi,
Andy.
Andy Mack, just to follow on.
Yeah.
The neighboring community has done that.
Yeah, Sherwood Forest did it. Yeah.
Yeah, so they just redefined what a short-term rental is.
Right.
Currently, we define it as 2 days.
Right.
So
Yep.
they made it longer.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think that would be help and make it more.
Yep.
manageable. But back on this topic, in the last meeting, somebody asked a question about the operating expenses.
Right.
And I realize that it's a bit of a swag.
Right.
And, now we're talking 90K for the
Activity.
A&W only.
Right.
The question was at the time from that person was, would a detailed pro forma be provided so we understand what's in that 90K? And the answer was yes.
Right.
But I haven't seen that and it wasn't in the presentation.
I don't get that to you. I mean, it's
where it comes from.
it's pretty generic. I can get it to you. I mean, because you don't know. I mean, we took our water numbers, we took our electric numbers, we took our, transparency of all this number is such a small number, but if over in the overall scheme of things, if you're talking $90, you're talking less than $8 a door. I mean, it's not a big number, but I'd be more than happy to present what we have, which is basically 6 line items that say, okay, most of it's going to be electric, utilities, water, labor, and insurance.
I understand. One of the previous questions was what's gone on since the last.
Right.
time to address people's questions.
Yep.
That was a question and that was something that was going to be provided. And I think it just goes to.
Yeah, we can
the
add
chance
that.
we responded.
Yeah, we can add that to
Also
what goes
knowing
out
that
for vote.
a large percentage of our expenses are really labor. comp
Right.
and ben.
65%.
Okay, so this is about a half ahead, right?
Mhm.
That's all.
Mhm.
Is that?
Well, so
reasonable?
no, in the budget, we put in 1.5.
1.5.
Right. 1.5. It's about 50,000.
90K is 1.5 people.
No, 50,000 give or take for labor. And then the other 40 is the other type of utilities.
I'm not sure I follow the math on the head count increment.
1.5. So to do the math, let's say it might be a $35,000 employee and a part-time employee that we'd add to clubhouse operation with your cleaning crew.
Seems like with comp and benefits.
Yeah. Depends on how much, where you're adding them and whether part-time or full-time.
And one last comment on the idea of which building site.
Right.
I think while it may be more cost effective to build over here, and I'm not a real proponent of one or the other, but building 2 buildings has incremental operating expenses. You got 2 roofs to maintain, just simple. But combining into one building, maybe it may be more cost effective to build 2 buildings. I don't know. It seems like a shared shower, shared utilities, all under one roof might be more cost effective. But that's just at a top level look.
Yeah. No, it could be. It may be. But again, what are those net costs really? Without doing that full analysis, you don't know.
No, I know.
But
And
because whatever you build down at the pool is basically a 20, let's just say a 2024 building versus whatever this building is now. And basically it's a structure with a roof, concrete, and a couple bathrooms. You know what I mean? It's not
building 2 foundations.
right. Yep.
Thanks. I think we should move forward rather than
Yeah. I mean,
wait another 2 years for another.
yeah.
Hi, John Gannon. I first of all like to take my hat off to both the facilities planning committees, that under Larry, for the fabulous job you did with this clubhouse at 2.5 million. My wife and I, shortly after this opened, went to a golf as volunteers for SAFE, a charity golf tournament at Lake Toxaway. And they had just finished their clubhouse renovation at $6.5 million,
Mhm.
which everybody was mandatorily assessed initially 25K, and they got hit with another 10K due to overcost. Okay. But having said that, I really come down with Craig and the other folks. I think the time for evaluating different locations is passed us by. I have to believe that the facilities committee under Chip have done a really diligent, credible job. And there's one number on that spreadsheet that just jumped out at me. If the original estimate to build a 3-story, which by the way, aesthetically, I don't like, sorry, was $4 million back in 2019, that's got to be somewhere between close to $6 million today. Hello? By the way, I'm on the A&E committee. Our top builder in Conisty has just raised his quotation on new construction to over $400 a square foot.
Yep.
So I thank you all. I hope we go forward with this. Barbara and I are going to go.
Thanks, John. Anyone else? Anyone standing? Barbara, no. Okay. Looks like that is it for today. So we appreciate everyone coming out. Thank you for coming and learning about where we are. Thank you very much.